We see signs all over the place that say love wins. But doesn't that feel a little naive or even irresponsible?
Members of a family are accused of a brutal hate crime.
The city is reeling after a gunman opened fire in a supermarket Saturday.
The disturbing surge of racist attacks against Asian Americans.
Plano police are investigating a possible hate crime that has already resulted in assault and terroristic threat charges.
We don't want you here.
What we are seeing is just the tip of the iceberg.
You're all wearing masks like sheep.
In your bed, a lot has happened when it comes to the coronavirus.
They want to build the wall.
He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Will not let them take the right
So much
of
built
women.
up anger and sadness.
I mean, it's out there, and hate has infected our political and social and public life. Or maybe it's been there all along and it's finding new outlets.
This has been such an overwhelming time. The world is overwhelming. And I feel like the kind of energy that I usually have for reaching out, I feel like at this point, sometimes I'm just trying to keep my head on.
Instead of just disagreeing with one another, people now hate each other if they disagree.
When love is not there, when this notion of knowing each other is not there so that you can extend that love, then you will see hate is coming.
You see it on Facebook, you see it on Instagram, you see it on all our social media, on Twitter. So many people, before they read the entire post, immediately respond with some kind of hatred, with some kind of vitriol, because there's no time for reflection.
Is love dead?
Well, I mean, it's, oh man, it's,
I'm gonna.
I don't even know.
I mean, I don't really know what that means. So,
Ain't no love. They don't love nobody.
I got nothing.
What do you think?
What's that?
What do you think?
I don't know. That's what we're hoping to find out.
Do I need to look at you or to the camera? Okay. Yeah. I was born into a really dysfunctional family. My mom was 17 years old when she had me. We're from a little town called English in West Virginia. By the time that I was 14 years old, my mom had been married 4 times. Today, I think that she was also in addiction. At that time, I did not know it, but I did know that she was a drunk. I was too young to really remember all of it. I was conditioned at a really young age to use my body to please men. Yeah.
Forks or spoons?
Spoons.
Before I was married, I knew I wanted kids, so yeah. We
wanted kids. That was something we definitely agreed on. I think what I wanted to be and what I strove to be was somebody who encouraged each of the boys to pursue whatever they were good at.
I just wanted to be there for them. I wanted to have good communication and be involved in their lives.
Making it to the NFL was my dream since I was a kid. I think lots of kids have that dream. But God gave me the body and talent to be able to achieve that goal.
Not only was I dealing with sexual abuse, but I was dealing with physical abuse. I can remember times when she would pour bleach on the floor and make me get on my hands and knees and scrub the kitchen, and you could see the meat in my knees from where the bleach had just ate my skin.
Tim begged us to play football, I think when he was 6th grade. And we're like, oh, what if you get hurt? What if you, what if you? And we went to the first practice, and I was talking to the coach, and the coach says, you don't need to worry about him. He's going to do the hurting if it happens.
The size he was and the height he was and the weight he was and how fast he ran, as a freshman in high school, he just physically developed.
I was just done. I didn't know what this 5th husband was going to be like, and I ran away. I met a guy who sold me a dream, and I started selling my body. And I would get picked up, and they would take me back home, and I would run away again. The last time that I got picked up and they took me back home, me and my mom got into a really bad fight. And I took a glass and I threw it at her. So I ended up getting introduced to the juvenile justice system in California. Not because I was committing like serious crimes, I was just a runner, and no one ever asked me what I was running from. Trust me, kids are not running from home just because they want to run. They're running from something, and no one ever asked me what I was running from.
Tim felt that God made him to run. I mean, he just felt that within himself, because that's when he was the most free, when he was running with the ball. And
Tim was the kid everybody wanted to be on his team at recess. So you divide up and play, whatever it is, soccer or something, and everybody wants to be on Tim's team. His solution was he's on his team against everybody else. Because I think part of it, he doesn't want to, well, who do I choose? So I won't choose anybody.
In 1989, there was an earthquake in the San Francisco, Oakland area. It's pretty bad. They ended up leaving California in '89 after that earthquake, and they came to Memphis, Tennessee. I've always yearned for a healthy relationship with my mom, okay? So I decided I was gonna move to Memphis so that I could work on my relationship with my mom. And I started working in a strip bar there as a waitress, because I didn't want to sell my body anymore. So I was gonna be a waitress. And I got into an amateur contest and won $500 in about 10 minutes, and it was on and popping. Then that was such quick money. I met another guy who started feeding me dope, and then the next thing you know, I owed him. I ended up getting a really, really bad beating, and that's where I got this scar and this scar, and then I got a hole in my head right here too. I stayed out on Murfreesboro Road from '98 until 2004, jumping in and out of cars to support my drug habit. And during that '98 to 2004, I went to jail for prostitution 63 times in Nashville, okay? And I also did 2 years in prison for a charge that I didn't even commit.
Football has taken me to levels that few experience. To make it to the NFL was a dream. It was amazing and fun. I was very proud of achieving that goal.
When we're young, we often celebrate the first time a child does something. Oh, he's walking, or he's talking, or he's, this is gonna be the first time. Oh, wow, look, he did that for the very first time. It is really tough. We don't celebrate the last time when we do things.
He was tripping, which he realized he wasn't controlling that. I think those were some of the first signs.
We were in the garage, and he was helping me unload the groceries, and he picked up 2 gallons of milk and dropped one of them on the floor. Just a little accident. Any of us could have done that. Looking back, that was one of the, I've lost strength in my hand and I can't actually hold on.
It was devastating. And part of the reason for that is our other son, Andrew. His mother-in-law had passed away from ALS 2 months before Tim's diagnosis. So we knew exactly what he was going to have to go through.
You get out of jail and you have nowhere to go. And so guess what you do? Because it's all you really know. You sell your body so that you can get you a hotel room. If I sell my body, I have to get high because it kind of goes hand in hand for me. I don't like selling my body. Makes you feel dirty. And so in 2004, something really, really beautiful happened. I was walking down Murfreesboro Road, it was the craziest thing, and there was this really beautiful woman in the grass. I found out that she was a volunteer at Thistle Farms. They were doing an outreach, feeding the prostitutes on the street, giving them clothes. They brought hygiene bags and stuff, and something just pulled me across the street just to find out what they were doing.
Loving people is a big idea, and when I started creating the communities of Thistle Farms more than 25 years ago, I knew it was a big idea, even if we did it for a very small group of women. So we invited 5 women, all who had histories of trafficking, addiction, and prostitution, to come find sanctuary. And I wanted to be a witness to the truth that in the end, love is the most powerful force for change that we know.
She put me in the car and she took me to my home, which was a hotel room. But like any good addict, I left a hit in the hotel room so that I'd have something to hold me off while I was waiting for the dope man to come after I make some money. I took that hit and I never came back out. I didn't come back out. I was peeking through the peephole to make sure that they were gone before I left. They eventually left, and I stayed out on the street for about 3 more months. Ended up going to jail on September 16th of 2004, and the judge put my sentence into effect, which was only 5 months. That's nothing. That's just enough time to gain a little bit of weight, get rested, get back out, and do it again. That time I did not know it was God, okay? But I know now that it was God that had me write a letter to the judge telling him about Thistle Farms residential program, and would he please give me an opportunity to come. 2 weeks later, I was in court, and on November 30th, I came into Thistle Farms residential, and my life is completely different 17 years later.
Being named Titan for life was a big honor for me. More than that, it was a reuniting of me with the game of football. When playing NFL football ends, it's very difficult. At that time, I had been out of the game for a few years, and really feeling bitter towards the game. So to be welcomed back to the Titans in that way was very healing for me. A great honor.
I think it would be very easy for somebody with a diagnosis like that to make it all about me. I remember, it could all be about Tim. It's not. He's on his computer, probably mostly texting these days, with a whole bunch of people, and he is mentoring people, he is helping people, he's helping them with whatever they're going through.
To be able to impact people has been a responsibility I have taken very seriously. I think it would be a waste if I didn't use football as an avenue for good.
So I've learned a million things about love from Sheila. From the moment she came in, she was all about trying to reach back and help the next person come forward. She got breast cancer 3 months into her journey here.
The breast cancer kind of broke me down, and I went through chemotherapy and I ended up losing all of my hair.
I went over to see her and I said, Sheila, I can see all the scars now.
I literally have a roadmap in my head from all the abuse that I survived.
The gift of really seeing what her life had done and all the abuse she had taken and how much she wanted it to be different.
Because honestly, whenever I first came into the program, I wasn't sure whether or not I was coming into the program because I really wanted to do something different or was I coming into the program because I wanted to get out of jail?
Life is difficult for everyone. We have different challenges, but can relate to each other through our struggles. I am positive that my suffering is not without reason. I have advantages, even now. So I've learned that we need to look out for others more. That we need to pull others along. That someone always has it worse than you. Humility.
For years, me and my mom have worked on this really strong relationship. And the realization is that, guess what? She's never really wanted me. And that's okay. I'm gonna love her anyways.
Can you tell me your name?
My name is Miles Jackson.
Miles.
Yeah.
Miles, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the words unselfish love?
Unselfish love.
I think just empathy and caring about other people and being understanding of where people are coming from.
Treating that person how you would like to be treated.
Doing whatever it takes to make the other person happy that you care for.
Family. Yeah, I'd say my mom, my parents.
It's like actions towards others without asking for something back. Okay. You know?
Unselfish love, giving without expecting anything in return.
I think anytime you go past somebody on the street and you say hi and you just like ask somebody how their day is, that could change someone's life.
Any examples come to mind where you've seen the absence of this kind of love?
Whenever you're walking down the street and, you know, you're about to go into a building, they don't even open the door, they don't even hold the bag. It's just a little messed up, you know?
People think that homeless people aren't the same because they don't have a home or food.
Lately, I've just been stressed out, so I just reciprocate that same energy, basically. Someone shows me that hate, I'll show back.
It's hard not to take it personally, but I think I try and remind myself that if it's somebody I don't know, you don't know what their day's been like. I'm the same way that their day could have been great and that's why they're doing something great. You don't know what their day is like, you don't know what their life is like. And for me, it's just easier to assume maybe they're having a bad day.
So I think hate is actually a reflection of your own mind, you know? You're confused, basically, you know? If you're not confused, you know that life is beautiful.
Perfect. That's it. Thank you so much. It's so nice to meet you.
Okay, nice to meet you.
All right. Have one.
Good luck with everything.
He said film speed, he said sound speed, I was gonna say Jeff speed.
Warp speed ahead?
I don't know, it just sounded cool, I don't know.
That's so funny.
I was what's called inspector instructor duty, where I'm an active duty person stationed at a reserve station in Columbia, South Carolina, teaching and supporting reservists in tank training.
And so I was going to the University of South Carolina, and my roommate grew up in his hometown.
We went to high school together.
We had rented a house together, and the washing machine broke. And she said, well, I know this guy from back home. I think he can fix it.
Yeah, I can tear apart anything, and then sometimes I can fix it.
Even a marriage. No, sorry.
Yeah.
That was too easy.
I wish.
His mama says he was the softest kid ever, that he used to cry at the drop of a hat. And when he said he was going to go into the Marine Corps, they were like, Jeff's never going to make it.
Seriously?
He will never make it. He's too tender-hearted.
Yeah, I was told, I'm not college material. We're not going to help you go to college, and you needed to go get a mill job. So I joined the Marine Corps. I enlisted right out of high school, delayed entry program, and shipped out within 60 days of graduating high school.
I had an uncle who was in the Air Force. He was actually killed while on active duty service. So I was not ignorant to military life. I just had not experienced it firsthand.
I had an engagement ring in my truck for weeks. Weeks.
I loved him, and I waited for him to figure out that he loved me.
Which I was a hard head.
Initially, I didn't want to have children. I just thought marriage was plenty with just Deb. I went up to Indianapolis when we were in Evansville for a meeting, and I stayed with a friend of ours that had a couple little ones. And that really changed my mind, that it was kind of neat having children.
And we married really young in today's terms.
So we weren't in any rush. We were actually married 15 years before we became parents. When that didn't happen naturally for a while, then I was in a doctor's office and I picked up a magazine and it talked about Korean adoptions.
We had our other two children, Keenan and Corinne, and they were, let's see, what, about 5 and 3, almost, when we started thinking about another adoption. And we wanted to get an older child that might not be adopted otherwise. And so, fortunately, the adoption agency had Children of Need published. At that time, she was known as Misuk, and that's a picture of when we first saw her.
There were friends and family who questioned our sensibilities a lot, but we very much felt like we could offer a child that might not otherwise be adoptable, Megan mainly because of her age. And we thought we'd like to do that. And we really only looked at a couple of young ladies. And then I think Kevin was actually the one who looked at her picture and said, that's the one.
There's no greater love than one who gives their life for their friend, right? And that's what we in the military live by. You see everybody in that organization from a brotherly love standpoint because that person is sacrificing their life for you and you're sacrificing your life for them. The camaraderie there is real. The love there is real. That's why it is so difficult when you retire out of the military, right? Because you're giving up a family. And while war is inhumane, we try to make wars as humane as we can. And because it is a human life. It is a life that God created. It is a life that does have a family, and somebody somewhere loves them. They're a brother, they're a sister, they're a father, they're a grandfather to somebody. But during the conflict, we both chose to be there to support whatever it is we're supporting. After the conflict, you still look at them from the perspective of human life.
I think it is super important for spouses and for family members and friends to love that individual who has been through those combat experiences, or, you know, your police force, your firefighters, anybody who serves in that capacity where they're sacrificing so much, to just kind of love them blindly.
I love in my actions, not necessarily what I talk about.
It's interesting.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Megan had been abused in Korea. That's not their culture, but the people that had kept her weren't very nice to her.
She had lived with a family most of the time, but she was very much more treated like a servant.
I learned what PTSD is when she went through a flashback of sorts where she was laying on the floor, curled up, speaking in Korean, very excited because something had reminded her of some of the bad times. Yeah.
That happened more than once, and it was even hard to approach her because she was afraid at that moment.
So it was really a learning experience.
When you come home and you try to uncompartmentalize, again, because you spent 6 to 7 months compartmentalizing, trying to keep your home life, trying to keep the combat situations, and then trying to keep, when you get back into a base, separate, those 3 things are gonna collide at some point. And I got a phone call from one of my Marines, and that phone call was to say, your gunner just committed suicide, but before he did, he killed his brother and his brother's girlfriend. That triggered it all at one time. Everything came just like that, instantaneously. It all came flowing back. Everything hit my brain at once, and it affected my entire body.
I didn't know anything about PTSD other than what they had shared in those reintegration briefs. And back then, they didn't tell us anything. They didn't talk about the fact that they're gonna stop talking, or they're gonna slip into isolation, or when they hear a baby crying, it sounds like somebody who's been wounded crying, and they can't stand to hear that baby cry. or the startle reflex where they're asleep in a recliner and a kid runs by and startles them and they have to stop themselves from reacting. I look back and I'm so disappointed at myself, at who I was as a person and who I was as a spouse. I remember telling Jeff when he came home, I love you, but I don't really like you. I don't want a divorce, but I don't want to live with you, because I didn't understand him. I didn't have enough knowledge to be as compassionate probably as I should have been.
For those who are struggling with trauma, people don't listen to them. They hear them, they don't listen. And I think that is being unselfish, just listening, being that shoulder, being that ear. It is those things, it really is.
When it came to Megan being diagnosed with stage 3 ovarian cancer, that was in August of 2016. She was engaged. They were planning the big wedding, but our plans had to change.
Goodness, probably about 15 years after I had her as a student, they gave me a call and said, hey, Amanda, exciting news. Matthew's gonna propose. We want you to help us with the wedding.
First time I met her, I was so nervous. Hopefully things go well and everything. And I drank through 4 glasses of water.
I remember the story that I had heard when he told her, hey, I have autism. And she said, yeah, I know. And he was like, you did? You knew that? She's like, yeah. Yeah, I knew that right away. And he just was shocked by that because he never thought he would find that love.
I didn't think it was possible that someone would like me for me and everything. But she came around and showed that she liked me for me. It was here where we ended up getting engaged. I kind of spooked her when I suddenly told her, would you marry me? But she was crying, laughing, and being surprised all at once.
She was too sick to leave to go to a church. So we asked a relative to come and do the service. She didn't have anything to wear. So her husband, Matthew, ran to Walmart, quickly bought a dress. He actually bought 2 and gave her a choice. And she picked one. They came out here, and I resurrected the veil because that was kind of the only thing I had. And we had a bouquet for her, and they said their vows right here.
A lot of people think love's a feeling, right? A lot of people think love is an emotion that you get every time you do something that you really like, or you see somebody that gives you the butterflies.
That's what I was waiting for.
That's really love. And what people don't understand is love's a choice. It's a choice. When we finally decided to get help, when we finally were pulling ourselves out, then you're able to identify it in other people.
See, how many times do we walk around in society and we're not aware of what's going on in that other person's head?
It's okay to get help. It's okay to say that there's an issue. Once I realized I had, well, I've never said it.
Isn't that funny?
Huh. Never said it.
Yep.
Well, I had trauma. And we needed help to work through it. That's when the healing started. That's when we really began. And that's when our days of helping other people too, because again, healed people heal people. When you're taking in family and they live in the house with you, trauma's 24/7. Trauma is stepping through every aspect of dealing with that circumstance.
Sometimes serving your neighbor, loving your neighbor, it isn't your neighbor, it's your family, right? It should matter when it's within our own family, because if we can't serve those within our own house, how are we really capable of serving those outside of our house?
Because of Megan and my children being non-white, then I have tried to be an advocate for people who are the other.
And I would say I grew up in a mildly racist family, and you only see that from one side. But as we got our children, you start seeing it from the other side. And I know for myself, it's really helped me mature, change some of my values, reinforce a lot of the good values. And it's been good for me.
Kids learn hatred, and they learn discrimination, and they learn racism, and they learn to treat other people poorly from their own home environment. Well, if we want to change that, then we've got to change it at home. If we're living out love, we're not just living it out for us and our generation. We're living it out to encourage the ones that are coming behind us so that they will do it courageously.
I think when we first started talking about the project, that love, like, oh, we must be talking about that kumbaya moment between people, and that's not what this is. It feels like, as a society, like there's some struggle in living this out. And I can only speak to my sense of the States, but why do you think we struggle, to whatever extent we do, in living out this kind of love, just as people?
Well, I think it is the struggle between selfishness and selflessness. And I'm a preacher, I'm not an evolutionary biologist, but I suspect that the instinct for selfishness is a perversion of a legitimate instinct for self-preservation, which was necessary when we lived in the wild. You have to pay attention to the environment around you so that you survive. There's nothing wrong with that. I happen to like living, so there's nothing wrong with that. But when that becomes a way of social existence, you see what I mean? When it moves beyond just mere survival on a kind of elemental biological level, then that becomes a problem. And there are tensions. There are clearly tensions. I mean, there are discussions about critical race theory and that in fact are not helping us to engage the reality of we've got to figure out how to learn to live together in ways of justice and equity and human decency and kindness.
Yeah, I mean, turn on the news. I mean, it's all over the place, you know? Racial inequality and religious, sure.
Especially with the rise of social media as it has become today, it feels like people are becoming more selfish in their own thoughts because everybody can hear it.
Yeah.
You know, predetermined ideas of what, you know, you think somebody is just based on their appearance, or, I mean, we fall into that category, you know.
You got to get out of yourself and maybe even put yourself in their shoes, because you'll never know what a person's like until you realize where they came from.
You initially get these things bombarded into your head and you're like, wait a minute, that's not how this is, that's not how I think. So you have to stop that, look someone in the eyes, and then it all goes away once you say hi to each other and you look in each other's eyes, you're like, oh yeah, hey.
You know, it's okay to not think like the other person. We can all coexist. And I think it's important you embrace people's differences, not, you know, not demonize them for them.
Like, realistically, it's a big boat, and we're all just in different sections of that boat because we're all so busy fighting for that section and saying this is the best section rather than recognizing, oh man, we're all just one big ship together. If we could recognize we're going the same direction, or we could be going the same direction, there'd be a lot more peace.
I thought you were going to talk about how we met or something.
No. I wasn't going. He doesn't mean all the way back there.
We have different versions, so I'll let the lesser version go first. We are in the Jordan neighborhood in North Minneapolis, in the city of Minneapolis. It is the most diverse quadrant of the city, but it's disproportionately low income, disproportionately minority. We actually were trying to move into a neighborhood like this, or this neighborhood, for months, and we couldn't find a realtor that would show us a house here. Based on our income, they felt we shouldn't live here. There is good reason, but we did have the means, I guess, to work it out.
Yeah.
We see that as part of the pattern. that this is a neighborhood that is either by the folks looking for a home or folks helping them to find a home,
Right.
do not consider it to be an appropriate or a good place to live.
And when we first moved in, I picked out the room that would be our baby's room, and we heard a big bang one night, and didn't realize what it was. From where we were coming from, we didn't hear gunshots regularly, so we didn't know a gunshot. Now we can tell you what caliber pistol, but then we didn't, and a bullet had come through the room that I had picked to be the baby's room.
Yeah, right up there. Above us.
Right up above us. And Don said, with his cray-cray self, we're in the right place.
Growing up in Chicago, it wasn't a lot of opportunity. You know, it was more like either you sell drugs or you just hope, you know, some kind of like strange opportunity emerges. And school came easy. You know, academically, I never struggled, but being poor, you know, weighed heavily on me. So I just got caught in the middle of that, you know, just started making poor decisions closer to high school, and then just got full blown into gang life by the time I was a sophomore. Now, I just imagine my mom was 35, she didn't have resources, I'm 16, and she felt like getting me out of Chicago was the best option. So I experienced a lot of racism. I received a Chicago label, which means like anybody from Chicago is threatening, you know, dangerous. And I had to, you know, I spent a lot of time advocating for myself. Well, I just turned 19 and got caught with a gun. And from there, it was just I was labeled as bad.
My mother had me when she was 15. Obviously, she wasn't able to take care of me on her own. I got passed around a lot between different people. So it was an interesting way to grow up. My mother's family was very religious. That became more and more radical and fundamental as I got older. You know, when I was 12 or 13, my mother married someone who was very fanatical, and church became this smothering thing. We went to church every Wednesday night, Sunday school, you know, Sunday morning service, Sunday evening service, Bible studies on Thursday, church volleyball on Tuesday. And I was forced into all of it. When it's something that you struggle with and it's forced on you, it becomes suffocating. And that's how I felt about my faith. Until I hit puberty and realized an added complication is that it was clear I was sexually attracted to men and not women.
We knew that the problem was not insufficient funding, not insufficient charity, not insufficient nonprofits, but it was the flight of people who did not want to live next to people who were not like them or who were considered inferior to them that led to the problem.
We actually have some landlords who would go to correctional facilities and actually promote their properties to people leaving prison. Now, everybody needs a place to live, right? Absolutely. But this was, if you move into my place, I won't tell on you, you don't tell on me.
Yes. Now, that house at one point was a house of serious prostitution. And many, many different turns of tenants have been serious drug dealers.
Yep.
Now, over there, that's another duplex that was also probably, arguably worse than that house as a house of prostitution. And so when the issues came up, we kind of just got motivated to begin to start the block club, the block club meetings here.
The neighbors that we do have who have the same kind of approach as we do, we're so close.
Yeah.
Like, and the beauty is we're not under any illusion about whether we need each other.
A lot of these things, we just consider it normal. You did wrong, you gotta sit here. You did wrong, you gotta go here. You did wrong. It's like, no, how do we work with people in community through addiction, through whatever, and figure it out? Because sometimes people don't rebound from this. My neighborhood was like saturated with cops. I'm talking saturated. You go one block down this way, law enforcement. Same thing in Waterloo, Iowa. I had to get dropped off by the police. They see me, hey, we need to. And I used to always say, man, look, I'm a senior, man. I don't even need to go to school. I got caught with a gun at 19. When I went to court, all they saw was a black kid from Chicago with a 9mm. I'm like, I got a high school diploma. I wasn't even carrying a gun. 2 days before, a guy came out with a .357 and brandished it on me and my cousin. May my cousin rest in peace, but he brandished it on us. And I'm like, man, is you crazy? Like, so after that, I carried a gun. Like, after that, 2 days later, police swarmed me and I went to jail. I knew something wasn't right, but I couldn't figure it out until I studied criminal justice. When I studied criminal justice and got degrees in it, that's when I said, oh, okay, I know what this is. It's designed, you know, for some people to make it in life, but everywhere I lived, it was designed for me to fail.
I'll come later on Sunday.
When all this was happening to me, it was the height of the AIDS crisis. It was a topic on the news and a topic of discussion. Like a lot of Midwestern families who had never been exposed to another gay person, my mother remarried a third stepfather, and he wanted to have a birthday party. He was on a softball league, and he was going over the list of people he wanted to invite with my mother, and one of the men on his team happened to be gay. She said, no, you can't invite him. I don't want a gay person in my house. And I was sitting right there at the table next to her. There were things said like that by all members of my family. And so talking to them, you know, when I was a teenager just wasn't an option. As a kid, I just thought I did something wrong. And so, you know, you be the best Christian you can be. You do extra chores when you're not asked to. You stop talking back to your mother. You stop saying curse words. No matter what I tried, I woke up every morning and I was still gay. The crisis that creates, I think, for anyone in that situation is you have to figure out what's going on. I knew I was trying hard enough. I didn't think it was my problem. I thought, God is hearing me, but choosing not to do anything about it. Or maybe nobody's listening and there is no God. And I think by the time I was 17, that's the choice I made. I left and never looked back for 30 years. I didn't darken the doorway of any church. I wouldn't go to weddings, funerals. You know, when people tried to pray around me, giving thanks before a meal, I would excuse myself. I was just done.
So luckily, because of COVID-19, everybody's remote. I have about 51 employees, because if not, we would have been all in here at work. And so here's a bullet that was found. 2 people were shot that night, that morning. It was like 2 in the morning, there was a big shootout. But just realizing that it went through here, again, where one of my staff members would have been, another bullet went through here. And then, you know, went through the back there, and you can see a hole right there, and through there, and hit that cubicle back there. And you can see the fragments, glass fragments on the chairs over here. It's totally disheartening. I mean, like I feel really frazzled right now, really upset.
You might know I worked in the mayor's office of St. Paul. You know, I worked there 10 months. By being in that office, I could see every facet of it. I could see emergency management, I could see fire, I could see school, I could see the police, I could see the libraries. I got a 10,000-foot view on all of this. And as I'm looking, I'm like, wow, resources are being put here, but nothing is making it to the east side. So where do you think most of the people end up going to prison from?
A guy drove up in a SUV right here, jumped out, went over to the kid in the bus shed, and said, which set are you with? The kid said, I'm not down with that. Turned back to his friends. The guy pulled a gun and shot him in the back. Played out right here on the corner. So it could happen to him, it could happen to all these guys living in this community here. And so then the next question is that how we're leaving it? You know, is this America? Is this Minnesota? Is this Minneapolis?
So a lot of times we look at it like, no, everybody got opportunity. Hey, you can make it, and it's not really the reality. You know what I mean? And plus, that time in the cell, it's unhealthy. When I was in solitary confinement, I felt myself running out of ideas. I ran out of memories. Some people was getting medication. Some people was like, no, I'm gonna sleep this time away, give me trazodone. I can't sleep, I need some medication so I can sleep. Other people were being diagnosed and, really losing themselves. For me, I would always say, you're not taking my mind.
We've had 21 children, 0 to 18, shot in Minneapolis since the beginning of the year. And so, what is that, about 4 a month? And in the last 2 weeks, we had a 6-year-old, Anaya, 8-year-old, Trinity, and a 10-year-old, Ladavion. All 3 at the beginning of the week were fighting for their lives. All 3 had a bullet in their head. I mean, that's the thing that's kind of getting me pretty upset, that our babies would have these lodged in their heads. And Anaya didn't make it. Anaya died Monday.
I work for a pharmaceutical company in the IT department, and I shared an office space with an African-American woman. She went through a lot, being a Black woman in an industry and in a field dominated by white men. I mean, I don't have to explain the overt and subtle racism that she went through. She had a lot of things to be angry and bitter about, but she was the happiest, most positive person I think I've ever met in my life. She comes back from her meeting with this keg of iced coffee, plops herself down in the chair next to me, lets out a sigh, and I said, "So, how did your meeting go?" And she turns around and giggles, and she said, "It was awful." And I said, "But yet you're still smiling. How is that possible? How are you always so friggin' happy?" And she just, without missing a beat, says, "Well, God." I said, I would really like to embrace the faith of my childhood, but here's the experience I had. For the first time in my life, someone listened to what I said and was sympathetic. She said, that really sucks. I'm sorry for you that you had to go through that. She just grabbed me and said, nothing can separate you from the love of God. And it's almost like that's what I really needed to hear someone say.
I think a lot of us know love is the most important piece in all of this, because this will end. It's gonna end. Why not leave a lot of love here when you go, man? Like, that's what gotta carry on, because that's the only thing that's gonna keep us, focused.
I think when you push someone away because they may not be someone you deem as being worthy of being loved, I don't think they realize that if you're doing that to someone who sees you as a Christian and representing God, you're really pushing that person away from God, not just from you or from your faith community. It's okay to have doubts, and it's okay to have questions, and it's okay to say, God, I don't think I agree with you on that, but I'm just gonna leave that over here, and someday I'll have that figured out.
As I say, it begins here. And it's what I try to live by. Don't withhold from another that which you would not want withheld from yourself. If you want respect, don't withhold it from another. Do you want to feel safe anytime you are out of your home and on the streets? Then don't withhold that from another. Do you want enough food to eat? A decent home, equal opportunities? Then don't withhold these things. Healthcare from another.
So we're going to continue a little bit on this idea of racial reconciliation. And so what are you seeing in the world now in racial reconciliation and where we're headed?
I think the reality is that we've just got work to do, and we've got work to do that we can do together, We all know there's an awareness that law enforcement and criminal justice needs reform. It's in all of our favor. It benefits all of us. So reforming law enforcement and criminal justice is about how can we make good Samaritans out of those who serve in the criminal justice system.
One should not have to have great intellectual struggles about how to treat another human being. Do we have to have a great thoughtful debate philosophically about the best way to implement the budget that comes out of the federal government? Yes, but you and I are sitting here and talking on the simple human level where we bump into people on the street, in the office, in the neighborhood. We all know what to do there.
When you have people helping other people, whether if someone is broke down on the expressway, whether if someone is homeless in the streets, someone buys you a meal, someone gives you a pair of socks or a pair of shoes. Anyone that helps you get through your struggle of the day is considered unselfish love to me.
Goodness is right here. It doesn't take a university education to find out what it is.
We know that churches are human institutions, but the place, and we also know, and you would have seen this at a grander scale than most of us, that the place that we assume is the place of healing and a place of hope and togetherness all the time is also a place of divisiveness and pain and hurt. And I think there's a lot of people that on the outside looking in, whether it's a social issue or a political issue, that say, you know, there's no place for me here because of these things. What is it that the church as a whole needs to do to acknowledge whatever pain that it might have caused, and to find love in that while also still being rooted in their own belief system? How does that paradox play out?
You almost have to figure out, how do you get real? It means facing what may be painful truths. And one of the painful truths is that we have hurt people, sometimes using the name of God.
I'm bisexual, so I've had friends who, you know, they've come out to their family, and it's not always this unconditional love that remains. There's this idea of you have to act a certain way or you're not going to be accepted. There's sometimes requisites that people have to meet, standards people had to upkeep that make it unfair. Because if you truly love someone, I think you'll love them for who they are and not who you want them to be.
And then confessing isn't enough. You gotta do something. You learn from that past, you turn, and then you work together to build a new future where, like the slaves used to say, there's plenty good room for all God's children. That's the Christian religion I'm about. And so we must confess, we gotta fess up, keep it real, and fessing up that we have not followed in the footsteps of the King of Love.
Love protects, because if you have a community that loves you and you love that community, they will risk their lives for you, and I probably would risk my life for them.
We are each other's biggest headache some days.
Yeah.
But dear God, human community, healthy human community, is life-giving. We were made for each other. And I believe we were also made for the God who made us. And that's the ultimate community. All of us together in the God who made us.
I am a lieutenant commander. I am a cryptologic warfare officer and a warfare tactics instructor that specializes in electronic warfare. There's a lot of words to say. I'm really, really busy. I've been to a lot of school and I'm pretty educated. But the best part of what I am as a cryptologic warfare officer is I get to be a division officer or a department head or higher for cryptologic technicians or intel specialists. So those are the sailors that I get to work for. So those are the enlisted rates of the sailors that I am charged with leading and taking care of. So my dad was in the Army. He was Special Forces, 82nd Airborne. He retired when I was younger, but we retired to a place called Lawton Fort Sill. So that's in Oklahoma. So I still grew up around the military. And we kind of just lived off of the idea that if you were a young, healthy American, you have an obligation and a duty to serve within a military branch, at least one tour.
My old boss calls me the sailor whisperer. So he's like, if someone wants to figure out what's going on with the sailors, send in Christina. Like, she'll get them to talk somehow. And I don't know what it is, but I love talking to people. My degree is in psychology. That probably has something to do with it. I take that on as a personal responsibility because they're my sailors and I love them. And I want to make sure that they're okay. And some of them have really gone through some tough stuff that they don't know where to turn, or they're embarrassed to talk to their family about it, or they don't know how to approach their family about it. And leave it to me. I'll drag it out of them, and I'll make them tell me, and I'll make them help me help them kind of work through it.
Take this out?
Yeah. I have the bag, Karen.
And this
might
is
be
well?
better to put it all in the bag to hold out. There's another one. I don't know what this is. Oh, this is the pastrami. I love food, and I'd have the gift of cooking, organizing, just like an engineer. They always know the numbers and everything. I have the gift of looking for bargains and what good to cook. And I also want anything good to be shared. Just shared, have a good time and everything. In fact, I'm so glad that you guys came today. Because if you cook something and nobody showed up, that's really bad. So what are we gonna make for the first one? What you guys like to try on all that we had? Because the first one you guys are gonna try.
Yeah, you're right.
We hosted a lot of foreigners in the house, and we learned a lot from them. Yeah, one used to say, we don't have to leave the house. We could go travel around the world by hosting all these foreigners in the house. We had
15 or so people stay, single people who were social workers who came in a program, what was it called? The
Twin City
Twin City International.
But then they don't have that program anymore.
Right.
That's too bad, yeah.
And the first question we'd ask is, what do you know how to cook? And some of them had never cooked before.
Yeah,
But
and they would call home and said, how do you do this? So I could teach somebody else to do that, you know, yeah.
So there's the family you're born into, and then it's the family you're blessed with when you join the Navy. And so I've always seen the Navy as just an extended part of my family. I do have a lot going on at home, so it's kind of that push-pull from I love my family, I love being with them and taking care of them. I love my sailors, I love being with them and taking care of them. Sometimes they butt heads, so you have to pick and choose, like who's gonna take priority that day. And I have two little people at home that really guide how I behave and how I interact on a day-to-day basis. It's my job to make sure that I raise good human beings. I don't know what people are going through on a day-to-day basis. I don't know what their experiences are. I don't know what's happening behind closed doors. But if somebody's having a bad day and they're not treating me kindly, I will 100% of the time treat them kindly. Because what if I'm that person that makes that difference that day and says, you know what, like she was still really sweet to me. She was still nice, even though I was a total butthead to her.
Yeah, you know, like a lot of these people, we like to help because they're from another country. They want to learn our culture. And one example is, it's not food related, but I go shop at the local Chinese store here. And one day we had, in front of me was this woman from Palestinian. She had like bags, 4 bags. And she told the cashier, she said, you know, you double my bag because I have to walk. And I thought, well, she probably don't live that far here. So then I thought, I should give her a ride. So I did give her a ride, and she was very thankful, and I feel really good that I could help somebody and could just give somebody so much joy. So that was one thing that I would say is that, you know, you don't really invest a lot to give somebody else that much happiness.
Kindness is universal. Being kind is so simple, just like showing love. It's so simple. It's free, it requires no effort. It's easier to be kind than it is to be hurtful. You know, there's a lot of stuff that I go home to that are incredibly challenging, but people wouldn't know what's happening in my personal life because forward facing, just trying to treat everyone with respect because we're all human beings. We all have our own stories. My son was diagnosed with autism, and so it took a long time to kind of come to grips with how our life we had planned it, just changed. When you get that initial diagnosis early on and they say, you know, he's autistic. Like it's a hard thing to take, but I love him so much, I didn't care. I said, I will fight for you. Let's cry.
You know, like everybody has something to give. Like everybody, I learned cooking from everybody, even somebody who can't cook, I always learn something that they could do, just one thing. So everybody has something to give. And so look for it and share it.
I always say, it's a saying that I've read before. It says, I wouldn't change my son for the world, but I'd change the world for my son. Absolutely. I would change the world to be a better place for my children so that I could leave this world a better place for them because they deserve it. Everyone deserves a beautiful place to live. It's a beautiful world. We should just keep it beautiful.
I used to weigh 80 pounds less when I met this woman. and she's always serving really good stuff.
Because it's something I could do to show my love. I can't do anything else. I have that talent to prepare good food, I think. Is my food good?
Yes, dear.
Yes.
I get it. It may be a fairy tale, but I'm okay with presenting a fairy tale to my kids because I want them to emulate that love and respect for other people and not just for the folks that live in our home.
If somebody like need something and need food or need comfort and stuff, I would be more urgent to do it. I'll just say I'll be there and what day do you need it and this stuff. So I don't delay like, oh, I'll do it next week. I'll do it tonight or tomorrow.
It doesn't have to be something that you say, I love you, right? I love pizza. I don't love pizza the same way I love my kids, but I do love pizza, right? But it's anyone that I come in contact with, it's just showing them respect. It's treating them like a human being. That's showing them love to some degree.
Well, you guys are welcome to try the loaves of fishes. Yeah.
You
and then, oh, you burned it.
I did not. Oh no, that's jalapeno.
I know, but it's still too dark.
It's a hot oven.
He always liked to burn his food, so yeah,
hot.
go ahead. And everybody's so happy too to get together, so to see the kids and the adults and everybody. But it's a gift that I have to steward and give.
Love looks differently to everyone, but at the end of the day, if you make a decision or you do something based off of love, to you, you have not failed. This is a beautiful world. We can't waste it, and we only have so many years on this earth, so let's just make the best of it as we can and not dwell on the past, but make a better future.
I have this list of ways that love has been described that I'm going to read, and I'm curious if one of these from the list speaks to you more than the others and why. Love is patient. Love is kind.
Of course you recognize it.
Love does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. Love does not dishonor others. Love is not self-seeking. Love is not easily angered. Love keeps no record of wrongs.
I'd say most of it, the kindness part.
Love always perseveres. In the end, if we do things out of love and for those reasons.
I would say love is not self-seeking. Why? Because I feel like when you look for it, it doesn't really come to you, but it normally creeps up on you when you're not expecting it most.
Always perseveres.
I would say love is patient. Probably speaks to me the most.
I think it's definitely a collective, which is probably why they put them all together.
Love is not self-seeking.
I would say love is patient because no matter what someone does to you, if you love them, then you're going to forgive them. So you have to be patient with that person at all times.
Love is kind.
I like love doesn't keep count or something to that effect. Love doesn't keep a record of.
Keeps no record.
Yes, exactly. Because, we all make mistakes and you got to keep on moving on. So that's a big burden to carry if you have to keep track. It seems.
Come to Gigi then. Hello.
Well, where do we start? Ruth and I work in the schools, so we're kind of big about looking at how do you give back? How do you add to society? So
we have 3 kids. So Kennedy's our oldest,
And then we have Jackson, the middle child, and then Lara is the youngest.
It was a Thursday night, right? Thursday night, I get a phone call from my friend Edna, who I had met. She was this incredibly strong woman who I met through work, who was very, very pregnant, and she was recently arriving in Minnesota, and I learned that she had 2 other girls and that her husband was recently deported, right? And I got to talking one day with her. She needed help to get transportation to the hospital to have Abby. And so I was on the phone with her for a while. The system took forever. It was probably like an hour trying to organize a ride. And so I was just talking with her, and I asked, you know, who's watching your girls while you're in post-op, you know, with Abby? She said, well, maybe my neighbor. I'm like, well, if that falls through, you know, I told her, like, I live with my parents, they're teachers. My husband's from Mexico, we speak Spanish. And I gave her my number. I said, just call me if something happens, you know, like we're there to help. We're a family that has a lot of people that can help support your girls. And so the night before she was scheduled to go to the hospital, I get a call at 10 p.m. and she said, my neighbor doesn't want to watch my youngest, Isel. And so I go upstairs and Mom and Dad are already asleep. I'm like, Mom and Dad, there's this lady who I know and she's having a baby and she has kids. And I said we would watch her kids while she's in the hospital. And they're like, all right, that's great, that's great.
Half asleep.
Are you guys looking at me?
No, I'm looking at both sides equally.
I don't know if...
Because you... Jeff thinks things through, I think, a little more.
He and Laura are very analytical. Yeah.
I'm just gonna go with my heart, right? It's like, we didn't know all the answers. We didn't know, but a mom needed help.
Yeah.
And I'll just never forget, because Edna's there at the door, right, at the apartment building, and Eliana's by her side, just a big grin. You know, she doesn't know what's happening. We're strangers. She just smiling the entire time, probably really terrified underneath. And then Isel was quite sick.
Yeah.
And then here's Edna, and just tears rolling down her eyes. Try to strap him in the car seat. And brought the older 2 here, and she was off to the hospital.
Yeah.
We just absolutely fell in love with, I mean, Edna is incredible. She's so fun to get along with, and we love her girls. They just like her.
It's funny because we don't even know when our first date was, like the date of it.
We met online, actually.
Way back before meeting online was dangerous and scary. I knew that I wanted to have a large family, and it wasn't coming very easy for us at all. And we were doing all kinds of going to the doctors and all that fun stuff. And we conceived Gibson about 5 years after.
Yep.
About 5 years after we had started. It wasn't a very good pregnancy. I became high risk very fast. So yeah, 15 weeks of bed rest, and he came 5 weeks early and healthy and had no NICU stay, had nothing. So he's pretty much our miracle child. But we knew that we wanted more kids, and getting pregnant was probably not gonna happen. I think in 2013, we got licensed to be foster care.
It was before that.
So I got an email that another county in the area was looking for a placement of 3 kids. And so I said, yeah, we're interested. Social worker calls me and, yep, they're gonna come. Okay, so I text Sam. So I may have got a call. I may have said yes. They may be coming on Thursday. Okay, he says, how many is they? Mind you, we have 1 child. He's like, all right, we're doing this.
So it's not easy. It's not easy, but at its base, I think it's simple. Don't overthink it, right? You see an opportunity to maybe make an impact in a positive way, so just go for it. I think a lot of us are quick to think, oh, you know, make sure you're doing it the right way. Like, okay, I get that, yeah, they're doing sacrifices to help their family, but make sure you're doing it the right way, or what their concept or preconceived idea is of doing the different steps, right, to get to your American dream, to make it. And it's so much more complicated.
Antes de venir acá, pues yo trabajaba en mi país, igual que como lo hacemos en todos los países. Siempre tratamos de salir adelante en diferentes trabajos. Soy maestra de educación básica y también trabajaba en Honduras como maestra. Es bien diferente como aquí, pues si tenemos un trabajo y ganamos poco, pues se ve la diferencia si hablamos económicamente, se ve la diferencia de nuestro país con lo de acá. Entonces,
And the coming here was for her girls so that they could stay together. You know, they have family back in Honduras, right? There was just these huge tropical storms. Like her mom lost her roof in her house. They're trying so hard.
We see the immigrant story playing out right in front of us. You know, we see in the political world, we see the concept of immigration being used for, you know, political ship and trying to gain votes one way or another. And I would just try to invite people to look at, these are human beings. They are the American story.
Salí a finales del mes de mayo de Honduras. Tuve que cruzar frontera de Guatemala, México, y pues ya la frontera para cruzar a Estados Unidos, pues prácticamente son, quiero ver, tres fronteras.
They're coming through Mexico and they arrived to this abandoned ranch. In Mexico, there are places that are abandoned outside of like the city where authorities don't really pass by. So they came to this ranch in Mexico and they walked for another 15 minutes to like get to the cars that were gonna transport them. And it took them to this kind of like a house, but it's like one room. It's kind of like empty, kind of almost like a garage. And it was terrified. And there was a pillar and it had a chair. And there's just blood around the chair on the floor. And they get there and they're like, all right, call your families. We need the money. We need the $2,000. And there was a man from Edna's town who was there. She just grabbed him. She's like, we have got to get out of here. These are bad people. And she immediately called. She's like, we need the money now. Because that's all they want. They just want the money.
Y gracias a Dios, pues, fue el último lugar que pasamos así. Ya después es cuando llega uno, después de ahí llega a, ¿cómo se llama? Reynosa. Es el último lugar para cruzar aquí a Estados Unidos. Pues ahí en Reynosa ya estaba más calmado, pues. Sabemos que hay muchos peligros, muchas dificultades que tenemos que tener en cuenta, pero pues es riesgo que corremos y no sabemos qué nos espera. Pero gracias a Dios, Dios nos premia a veces con personas tan buenas como ustedes. Ay, no, creo que era. No, puedo parar. Puede parar, le digo yo.
So we got them 2014.
Something like that, yeah.
About a year later, the courts declared that parental rights would be relinquished. And so there's no question in our mind if we were going to adopt these children or not. So we legally adopted the 3 kids in 2016. We've come a long ways from beginning to now. We have a lot of challenges with our kiddos. Jason has reactive attachment disorder, otherwise known as RAD. And because he did not have consistent caregivers as an infant, he was never able to get those connections developed. So to him, showing me affection is something as simple as he brings down his teddy bear from upstairs. The paw says, I love you. So he pushes that paw. He's not saying it to me, but he is. Not verbally, but he's telling me that he loves me through this bear. Jason's cuddling is sitting next to me on the couch. We're sharing a blanket, and I gently put my hand on his hand through the blanket. No physical touch. I've only heard him say, I love you twice in the whole time he's been here. That was last week. huge progress and steps. It was followed up by a tantrum. He cannot control his emotions or how he's feeling. That was just weird to him. Those endorphins were weird to him. He did not know how to react. So he threw a tantrum and a fit, which means he's screaming the top of his lungs, throwing things, putting holes in walls, putting holes in shelves.
And is there anybody that you love?
My parents, my mom and dad.
You love your parents?
Mm-hmm.
How about your brothers and sister?
Mm-hmm.
How about us?
Mm-mm.
He's coming a long ways. We're doing some equine therapy. So we're building relationships with horses. And it's huge with kids in trauma, who've had trauma. It's huge, that equine therapy, because there's 4 horses, and those 4 horses are Jason's story, Amara's story, Shane's story. So every child has a different name for each horse. That's part of their story.
Puede ser que pues ellos son güeros, ellos no tuvieron distinción, entonces pienso que en el amor no tiene que haber raza ni religión, entonces cuando se demuestra pues hay que demostrarlo. Pues pienso que para las personas que ven pues nuestra historia, pues que vean de que pues aquí se ve reflejado. Tampoco ni el estatus migratorio en este país, pues nosotros somos migrantes y ellos pues son personas que son nacidas acá y pues no les importó la raza y pues ¿por qué? Porque en ellos hay amor y eso es lo más importante.
Our family just decided, we're just gonna love and we're just gonna do it big and let's just do it. And if we regret it later, we do. Big deal. What we give comes back twofold. I mean, the little that we have given them or have shown them, they show us every day more than we could ever expect or want. And it's overwhelming, right? It just moves us. This love is just so powerful and so fantastic.
It is, it's amazing. I never expected to have so much love for these girls, and it's so cool to be a part of it and to be able to feel this incredible love and joy.
I never would have thought I'd be doing this, not in a million years, and now I wouldn't imagine not doing it. Gibson came from me and Mel, and these 3 kids came from someone else, and we love them all the same. Love can be given to anyone if you're capable of loving.
I just think love is joy and happiness, and you're thankful for it. Love means like when your heart beats fast, you know that you kind of love someone. Love means happiness. And who do I love? Mom and Dad, Gibson, Mom, me, Jason.
Love that never fails, love that never goes off the tracks. Even when kids are crying and having a fit because of the diagnosis that they are dealt with, the trauma, and then when they say they hate me, I will always love them, no matter what. No matter how mean they are to me, I will always love them. I'm always in their corner.
I was raised to believe that you've been put on this earth to make it better. The Jewish tradition talks about tikkun olam, to heal the creation, to repair the creation, that we are not here to do it more harm. We are actually here to make it better, to continue God's work of creation, of creating a world that we can all say, and this is good. Dr. King, said it over and over again. We will either learn to live together as brothers and sisters, or we will perish together as fools. And then he would add, the choice is ours, chaos or community.
Are we making that choice? Like, what do you what are you seeing right now? We know what we should be doing. Like, are we?
I mean, we didn't get here overnight, and we're not going to get beyond here to a new day that reflects our deepest dreams overnight either. And the fact that we can do something means that we have agency. I used to tell folk when I was parish priest, we can't do everything, but we can do something. So let's do something. Let's do the something that is the most good that we can do. We're not God, so we don't have to pretend to be. Don't need to get upset and anxious about that. But we're who we are. I'm Michael. So what is the greatest good that Michael can bring and do? And maybe that's enough to make it. One step at a time, one day at a time, one moment at a time, one life at a time.
I lived with the Eves. They had a son who was then about 3 or 4. I started then taking Champ regularly to St. Philip's, to Sunday school. And I knew that Father and Mrs. Curry had 2 children. Everybody knew who they were, especially Michael. And so that's the relationship I had with them. Michael was Michael. He was all over the place. All the time, certainly on the altar every Sunday. And he was not the same kid on the altar as he was running around in Sunday school and places. And not creating a problem. I mean, he was just Michael. I don't know how else to describe him. We knew that Mrs. Curry was sick, that she couldn't be brought back until she was better. Everybody knew that on Friday, I believe it was, Father Curry came in from Yonkers, because that's where they were. He would stay until Monday morning and go back to Yonkers.
She was in the hospital there.
Right.
That's right. So he was driving back and forth.
I said to Father Curry, if there is something I could do to help, let me know. He said, sure. So the next morning I showed up. There was a downstairs bedroom. The other 3 bedrooms were upstairs. I got there and he took me to this downstairs bedroom that had twin beds, and both beds were loaded with clothes. And so he just wanted me to help with the ironing. And he had left very strict instructions for the 2 of them to stay upstairs, out of my way. Michael got a chair from the kitchen, pulled it up to the doorway, and sat there and talked until I left. The entire time, he just sat there and talked.
When your mother is in a coma, because that's the other part, in a coma, and then died, never comes out of the coma, I just think it's the instinct of a kid, not to replace her, but you do look for maternal, where do you get whatever that maternal companionship or something, you do look for that. I mean, I just think that's a human instinct. So my guess is, as a kid, oh, well, she talked like, sounds. And it's interesting, my sister Sharon, who was younger than I, she's younger than I, my guess is on some level, she had the same kind of reaction. I mean, we were really very fortunate and really blessed through that time that Josie, Emma Bullock, Miss Clark, just a list of people who surrounded us, and they couldn't replace her, and yet they could provide the community that was enough to buffer and help us navigate through it.
I mean, I just did what needed to be done. What I could do that needed to be done. Yeah.
Yeah, you just did it.
Mm-hmm. And it's not something that you sit and think about. You just do what has to be done, if that makes sense.
As a kid, for a child to lose their mother, for them to die, you learn loss pretty personally that none of this is permanent, but there was a community of love around me. There was a community of faith. Now, I didn't consciously realize that that was the womb in which you can live your life. And it can handle loss. It can handle failures. It can handle all sorts of stuff. I think I learned the hard way, not consciously aware of it, that the loss of your mother doesn't mean you lose life. That in some way, death does not have the final word.
One of the things that a lot of people don't know, at 210, that's where they live, 210 Hamlin, there was an attic, and Michael had constructed a chapel. Here's the altar, and here are these rows of little chairs. In each chair, there was a doll.
No, a soldier, wasn't a doll.
There were dolls in these chairs.
Oh, this is the big part. Oh, yeah, not the little one. Oh, yeah.
And that was the congregation.
Oh, yeah.
He went up and celebrated whenever he got ready because his congregation was there and his altar was there and he knew how to celebrate, and so he did.
Every one of us is of infinite metaphysical value. That's who we are. We are children. We are the children of God. All of us. All of us. And when you start to make that connection, my wound, my hurt, my suffering, my pain, my story starts to connect up to yours. And I can't sit back when somebody is mistreating you. I can't sit back when somebody is mistreating anybody. I can't sit back when I'm participating in mistreating by commission or omission.
And it feels like, as you say that, like the real work in the here and now is that connection of taking my personal, I'm not going to be under somebody else's boot. Everybody feels that, whatever their version is, and extrapolate that
now you preach
to the greater good. And that's where the work is.
Yes. You either work to help to alleviate and suffering and wrong, or you do nothing, or you make it worse.
Yeah.
Now, which of those three, behind door number 1, door number 2, door number 3, which of those three makes sense for us? It makes sense to give your life in the service of others. And I know this word people would like recoil. It's close to what people actually once upon a time meant by duty. And now that can turn into a mechanical, obsessive, it can turn into a negative thing. But sometimes I do this because I'm human and you're human and somehow we're connected. You have a need, I respond. It's like in Southern Africa, Ubuntu. I am because we are.
I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked you on our first Zoom, which is the backbone of this whole thing. So what is unselfish love?
I wrote them, so naturally they've got to be read. So I'm going to tell it as if I was trying to tell it to you. It's easier for me to think about unselfish love as self-forgetting love. It's not the phrase's fault, but unselfish love sounds to me like an ability that has to be acquired by someone not naturally disposed to act that way. And self-forgetting love doesn't, but I think they mean the same thing.
Unselfish love for me is to love people regardless of their orientation. So what does that mean? Regardless of their religion, color, background, just as a human being.
My first concept of unselfish love comes from family, right? The love that my parents put into me, the love that's in my own marriage now. The older you get, the more you begin to understand how unselfish it is to do what is kind of a matter of course within family a lot of the time.
Love is not a sentiment.
Love is not romance. Love is not a feeling. You want to know what love is? God defines love here. Give a hungry person a meal and some clothing. That is love.
You know, unfortunately, my job has taken me to a lot of places where disasters, natural disasters, have happened, whether tornadoes, floods, earthquakes, hurricanes. And you see people rush in, total strangers, and boom, they're there to help. And to me, that's a form of love, of doing for others, not asking for anything in return.
Love can be defined in several different ways. There's pure desire, which is appetite and ambition. You have something or you are something that I want. And there is love that is giving.
You know, it really is, it's not complex. This is not complex at all. To bless and care for you also blesses and cares for me. It is to reverse me instead of me, we. And when we do that, we find a way to live together.
I think we live in a world where we spend a lot of time navel-gazing, thinking about ourselves. And it's almost built into our culture. If you think about it, even the way that we communicate today, we spend so much time on the device. Sometimes things are happening around us and we're not even attentive to others because we're just so focused on ourselves and what we want to do. Sometimes that over-connection with things disconnects us from people.
There are often people who will talk about the problem of individualism in American society. And what I often say is, I understand what you're saying, but I don't think that's the primary problem. I think that the problem is more the opposite, a kind of collectivism, a kind of hive mind, where the safety is to find where's my herd and let me blend in with that.
To go up to some individual in the name of what you believe to be a righteous cause and get in the face of that individual and berate that person is not going to advance society.
I mean, on one level, you have to feel passionately about some of the things we see around us. But anger in the form that distances us from others or distances us from our best selves, I think is the thing we really got to watch out for.
Politics is important, but it isn't everything. It's not ultimate. Like Tillich said, you know, religion is about ultimate concern. Well, politics isn't. It's just politics.
I think when I look at the scope of history and things that have happened, I think there's a lot that people didn't know and were acting on at the time of things that they had learned, and then acting small in times where big was really what was needed.
But the times find every generation. No matter who you are, what time you come along, the times find you. And then it's up to you as to whether or not you rise to the challenges.
Are we going to really do it? I believe we can do it. I believe that e pluribus unum is possible. I believe that a truly multiracial, pluralistic democracy is possible on the face of this earth. And I believe it because it's not just the American experiment. That beyond democracy itself, the notion of peoples learning to live together in human community, that's not just the American experiment, that's the human experiment.
Even tax collectors know how to love. So, it follows that loving unselfishly is within easy reach of all of us, since we all already know how to love.
You know, when you see and meet Archbishop Curry, for instance, you get that big hug, right? And with the smile and with love. I mean, even if he didn't know you, but still he can extend that. That's motivated by him as the faith leader, as well as human being, loving other human being as the creation of God.
I've seen us do the hard work of setting others free. I've also seen us do evil. I mean, we're both, it's a mix.
I think it has to do with basic humanity. Basic humanity. How can you not see that there are people who are suffering because they don't have the basic things that you and I throw away every day? I mean, the things we take for granted.
We have to advance the positive, right? Through better understanding, knowing each other, promoting, respect, mutual respect and understanding and tolerance, right?
What would happen if we looked at each other as brothers, sisters, siblings, children of the one God who made us all? And if we constructed our laws and our social lives and our personal relationships ordered by that way of love? Yeah, someone can say that's naive. Well, sometimes what we call naivety actually are ideals we don't want to really deal with.
There is the divine in everybody. And one way to try to transcend the moment when you're in one of these political or social media interactions is to think about what it means that God loves you and the person you're dealing with equally.
And that maybe this country of ours will be a country that's not ashamed to be a nation that loves and that will really do it with each other and around the world.
I think if people knew, I think if they had information, I think if they could see their neighbor, I think they'd love their neighbor.
If we can find a little bit of energy to just get curious about other people, even if we're not able to feel for them, we can start to understand their perspective.
Love in its truest form,
fragile light. I can be patient, I can be kind.